Hello and welcome back to Seagulls Central. My name is MacDonald and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, thank you so much for coming along to the best, the greatest, the fastest growing, the most exciting Brighton and Hove Albion fan community and YouTube channel. And if you've been here before, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate your support. Right, in this video today, we're doing something I've never done before, and I thought it would be quite fun because obviously it's the new season. We've got a lot of opinions flying around. I've been shouting out a lot of opinions. I've been making some videos where we get, ChatGPT to predict the season. I've been making my own predictions. We're reacting to new signings. There's opinions flying around left, right and centre. And I thought what I'd do is, basically, I'm seeing all of your guys' amazing comments, which I love replying to, love getting involved in such a, just one of the main reasons that I'm loving this channel and loving this community is, of course, making the videos, but it's actually getting to chat with you guys and getting the conversation going around Brighton. But you guys have your opinions as well. So what I've done is I've taken some of the most wildest opinions, not even necessarily kind of wildest, but maybe the most interesting opinions, the most outlandish, the biggest and boldest predictions, even after that ChatGPT video when we were talking about the kind of rogue take for the season. What's yours? Loads of you got in the comments. So what I'm doing is basically just going to go through some of them, react to them, and hope that it brings out a bit of a conversation around the squad, around the team, around the season, and it will open up a bit more of a general conversation. If you haven't already, by the way, and you enjoy this content, please drop a subscription to this channel. It really helps me a lot. I really appreciate all the people who have, all the people who have helped grow the channel. We're nearly at 2K. I want to get there badly. Anyway, I won't go on for too long. Let's get straight into it. So the first one, this one is from Tegus9019. This was done around 2 weeks ago. And this comment is this: Van Hecke will score more goals than Kostoulas is my outrageous prediction, praying it's not true. Now, this would be absolutely mental. I don't know whether, Tegus, you're saying that you think Van Hecke is going to become some goal-scoring beast next season, or whether that comment's more a kind of suggestion that you don't think Kostoulas is going to quite cut the mustard next season. It would be crazy if this happens. I think it's certainly the case that Charalampos Kostoulas isn't going to get he's not going to be the starting striker going into that first game against Fulham in 3 weeks' time. He's not. Neither is Tzimas. Neither is Tommy Watson. Neither are a lot of these players who we have signed, particularly in the forward positions. I think Fabian Hürzeler next season, particularly at the start, will be relying on players like Danny Welbeck, Georginio Rutter, even Gruder, Minteh, Mitoma, obviously, players who he has seen last season, he has trusted. Charalampos Kostoulas, Stefanos, Tzimas, Tommy Watson. These guys will have to make impacts off the bench, and they'll have to be played in different games, different horses for different courses. They'll have to provide different options for different games. I don't think we're going to see them hit the ground running, coming straight into the side and scoring loads of goals. My personal view is that actually Stefanos, Tzimas and Charalampos, Pervis Kostoulas will actually have decent first seasons for 19, 20-year-olds coming into a new league, probably going to play out of a 38-game season plus maybe 10 games across cup competitions. I reckon they'll probably feature maybe off the bench and combine. They'll probably each play around kind of 28 to 30 appearances out of 45, let's say. I think that's probably quite a good return for them. I think there will be games where they struggle with minutes. I think what we will see is probably one be a better goal scorer than the other. My instinct is that maybe Tzimas is a bit more of a Welbeck style, Ferguson style kind of number 9 bulky guy finisher, whereas Kostoulas is a bit more of an adaptable striker, can play across the front line and maybe isn't as much of a kind of clinical goal scorer. I am fascinated to see them. Bear in mind, I'm saying all of this having not seen a minute of them in a Brighton shirt yet. We've not yet been able to see them in any pre-season friendlies, obviously not featuring against Stoke, Coventry, Las Palmas, etc., Wickham. Hopefully this Saturday we're going to see the first look of them, and I think this will really help mould our opinion on, do they play together? Will they play together? Are they like-for-like replacements with any players that we have, and how are they going to fit into this side? So I think, Tegus, your view that Kostoulas is going to get less goals than Van Hecke, maybe we focus on the fact that Van Hecke is just going to score loads of goals, and that would be insane. If he can score like 5, 6, 7, 8 goals in the Premier League, that would be unbelievable. Would you take that if it meant that Kostoulas didn't score as many? Maybe you would. And with the view of some of these other opinions, maybe we won't need many goals because they get pretty crazy. Right, let's move on to the next one. Mark H67 says, I do think Coppola could displace Dunk by December. Very plausible. Now, this is in response to the ChatGPT video where we spoke about the wild takes that it came up with, saying that Dunk was going to be stripped of the captaincy, a load of old rubbish. But talking about the rise of Coppola, Mark's view is that Coppola will likely displace Dunk. I think what we will see is Coppola coming straight into the starting 11. To be honest with you, I think, yes, Van Hecke absolutely has his place. I think after that, it's all to play for. I think Lewis Dunk, what we have seen in pre-season is that he is still massively trusted by Fabian Hürzeler. He is still the man that will play alongside Jean-Paul Van Hecke. I think certainly if we go to that third position will be taken initially by Diego Coppola. And I think it would be hard from the performances we've seen so far this season for him not to go into the start of the season starting in some form of position. He looks like a Rolls Royce. He looks like the game is played at a different pace to him. He looks absolutely brilliant. So I think by December we could see, by halfway through the season, we could see a Van Hecke, Coppola, Buscagli back through. We could see a Van Hecke, Coppola kind of back to developing as the number one, and maybe Lewis Dunk plays a bit more of a bit part role. I don't think that's a crazy opinion. To be honest, I think all of us, maybe you less so, but I have been slightly surprised the extent to which we've seen Dunk be front and centre, first name of the team sheet still in these pre-season games. Now, admittedly, they are pre-season games. Some of the players haven't been available. We've had less options. Igor clearly about to go out on a transfer. Adam Webster losing him for injury. But Lewis Dunk still seems to have a big part. So, Mark, I think I do ultimately agree with that opinion. I don't think it's too wild, too crazy. However, I think we're probably going to see Lewis Dunk start the season alongside Jean-Paul Van Hecke as a starting centre-back with Coppola really, really hot on his heels. Maybe even trying to get into a back three. Who knows? Right. I'm going to move on to our next one. Now, I'm going to combine two that we got because they're very similar. And to be honest, I could have probably put up like 10 of these kind of comments because so many people had the same comment. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of had the same opinion. And it's this. So Yum Sushi _ LOL 6480, brilliant name, and your stepfather, both of these guys, I see them commenting a lot. Thank you so much to you guys for your support regularly. It genuinely means a lot. And to everyone else who comments regularly, seriously, it means a lot. I appreciate the regular commenters, the community. As I say, the community we're building, it's class, and I love talking to you guys, so thank you so much. So these two comments. Yum says, Karim Mitoma scores goal of the month in September. Again, fair play. 4 of our players will have 15 goals and assists over the season. Wow. We'll finish 5th and head to Champions League football next season. And your stepfather says, very optimistic, but I think if we don't have our winter slip up, then we can definitely be up in the Champions League spot. So this is the view that Brighton are going to get Champions League football this season. Now, we've spoken about a little bit on this channel, and previously, we've seen in Fabian Hürzeler's first quotes, we saw him talk about it briefly at the end of the season, but he has actually said that Brighton's target this season is to finish 5th. Now, that sounds mental, but to be honest, it feels like something you could get behind, doesn't it, really? Like, my view personally is purely just, it's twofold. Purely the fact that so many other teams are going to be occupied by European football, playing Thursday, Sunday, or Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. I think literally like the top 9 from last season, apart from Brighton, all achieved, European football. There's going to be like 9 English teams across the league in European football. If that doesn't provide an opportunity for Brighton, who actually, if we're being completely honest, have a really strong squad, a really deep squad, in a way that sides like, I think Villa do have a deep squad, but probably I don't think necessarily it's as deep as it needs to be for kind of consistent European football. Same with teams like Crystal Palace. I think they're probably, I'm not going to say they're going to do awfully, but I think they will struggle purely for the fact that they don't have that depth in the way that we kind of struggled and ended up finishing 11th after we got into Europe. But obviously it's worth it for the experience, but the teams do generally drop off a bit, and I think we'll probably see a few teams drop off. I can't imagine Man United and Spurs are going to overnight become brilliant teams. I think we'll see them creep back into the top 10, maybe around 6th to 8th would be my opinion on where they're going to finish. I think it does provide an opportunity for Brighton to press into that maybe 7th, 6th, 5th position. Now, these comments from you guys, Yum and Stepfather, saying Champions League, I think that's going to be mega. If Brighton can do that, that would be absolutely insane. I think there's an opportunity there. I think if you were a betting person, an outside punt would be Brighton for the top 5, finishing 5th. I don't think that's crazy to say. We've got the squad, and that was the other reason I was going to say, is because I do believe we've now got a squad that is capable of fighting on different fronts. And whereas before, maybe the first time we got into Europe, we had that really strong 11. McAllister, Caicedo, Danny Welbeck, Ferguson, Mitoma, Solly March, Dunk, Colwell. We had Estupiñán, Veltman. We had brilliant players, but the drop-off, it wasn't some crazy drop-off, but like our subs were like kind of, your Buonanottes or your Jeremy Sarmientos. And I think now, actually, the depth that we have is a kind of different level. If Danny Welbeck's not able to be fit, we've got Georginio Rutter who can play anywhere across the front line. We've got minteh, Tommy Watson, of course, Solly March. I'm losing my mind in terms of all the Gruder, who can all play out wide. In the 10, we've got Matt O'Reilly, Gruder, Rutter. We've got so many options. Left wing is the same. Our depth is crazy, and I think across a season, yes, we'll get injuries. Yes, the Brighton way is to get loads and loads of injuries, and I'm sure that will continue to happen. But I think we've got, I've said it before, we've got a top 5 attack. I said that last season. I think we've only added to that. And we've got these players like Gruder, like Georginio, who've had a season in the Premier League now. Obviously, Georginio had previously played in the Premier League, but with Brighton having a season under their belt in the Premier League, minteh as well. These guys are going to be on form, on fire. So I don't think it's a crazy shout from you guys to say that Champions League is on the cards. Okay, let's move on to the next predictions from you guys. We're going to go for 2 again, which are quite similar. First one's from Wes Choate, and the second one's from Andy Brown. Wes Choate saying, Rutter, 24 goals and assists next season. That's his take. Jeez. And then Andy Brown, enjoy your reports and analysis. Not sure I agree about Georginio playing as a number 9. He always seems a bit depleted when I see him as a number 9. It doesn't make the best of him. Interesting. So let's talk generally about Georginio Rutter next season and what we're going to expect. Wes's view is he's going to get 24 goals and assists. So how are we going to spread that out? What, like 15 goals, 9 assists? Like, that's pretty crazy. That's like kind of Brian and Buemo level, kind of maybe even better than what Brian and Buemo kind of achieved last season. Players who are then going on to get big money moves. I think if Rutter can do that realistically, next season we will lose him. I think irrespective of whether he has a 24 goal and assist season next season, I think at his age profile and the time we've had him, obviously 2 years at that point, having previously played in the Premier League, had good experience for Leeds United, I think clubs are going to look at him. He feels like a very kind of Liverpool signing. And the same with the kind of João Pedro felt like quite a Liverpool signing. I could see, Georginio maybe next summer moving on. And I think this season we're going to see him and minteh, in my opinion, really burst onto the scene and have a kind of breakthrough season. Not the last season wasn't, but I think they're really going to step up. On Andy's point, is he a 9? No, I think I do agree with you in that sense, Andy. However, my personal view is I think we will see him deployed as a 9 next season. In a pre-season game, you'll have to remind me which one it was. It might have been one of the ones in Marbella where we did see him essentially playing as a number 9. Okay, might have been kind of dropping off a little bit, and I think him and whoever he was playing with were kind of both kind of pushing on quite high up. I think Buonanotte might have been as well. Yes, his attributes maybe are depleted. He's not a brilliant back-to-goal striker. He's not someone who necessarily is kind of going to be, setting the tone from the front. He's more of a player who, with the ball at his feet, running at players, can run in beyond, look for the nice little pass and dink into players. You think about some of the assists he's provided. He is maybe slightly better when he sat off a little bit and someone like Danny Welbeck or João Pedro was in front of him. However, I think we're going to see him there. I think he's got many attributes that, ultimately he's that talismanic figure. He's a fantastic header of the ball. He's a brilliant finisher. He's got so many attributes, which as a number 9, we're going to see him essentially play up there. I think if we inevitably lose Danny Welbeck at one point of the season, I think that will be when we rely on Georginio Rutter. Another one of the opinions, which, and I'll just throw this in now actually, was from Avinash Z7E, who went through a lot of their predictions, one of them being Tommy Robson being the biggest flop. Interestingly, saying they don't reckon he's going to get any game time. But actually, the random prediction they said was that Tzimas is going to become our starting striker by the second half of the season and that Kostoulas goes out on loan. Interesting. On the kind of Rutter point that I was making around whether he plays number 9, I wonder, say, if we did lose Danny Welbeck at one point, who would come in to replace him? Would we see a Tzimas come in and be given the opportunity to kind of play as that number 9, as a pure number 9 in the literal sense? Or will it be that someone like Georginio Rutter is actually entrusted in that position? Ideally, those two up together would be fantastic. I think there's so many options. This is the trouble. It is all speculative at this point. I take your point, Andy, in the sense that I don't think he necessarily is a pure number 9. Absolutely, I agree. I do just sense we're going to see him in that position next season. And Wes, with your point about 24 goals and assists, let's not rule it out. I think the season he had last season, the promise he's showing, I think someone like Minteh as well, showing real promise. And, who knows what he's going to do as well. So I think it's really, really, really not a crazy shout for you. Right, let me just quickly move on to another one. Let me go. I thought this one was interesting, actually. So this is from A. Carter. A season of transition lies ahead. New defence, largely, and a weaker front line in losing Pedro. I'm not sure I agree with that. Can't see the Greek lads hitting the ground running, and wouldn't be surprised to see one or both go out on loan at one point. Absolutely, I think that's true. People may say we spent 50 million on the two, but they're only 18 and 19 and real novices with potential. I think we need more experienced additions to our front line to cover if Welbeck can't play every game. So, A. Carter, here's my view on that comment and that opinion of yours. I think the second half of what you're saying there is right. Maybe the Greek lads won't hit the ground running. Maybe one or both will go out on loan next season. It is the Brighton way. And yes, we've spent a lot of money, as you say, but they are novices and they might not be able to fully hit the ground running in terms of providing support to Welbeck. However, the first point is the bit that I don't agree with. New defence largely and a weaker front line than Pedro. I don't think we necessarily have a weaker front line. And my point would be this. I think Pedro's a huge loss. The idea that I think some people made out when we sold him that he wasn't a great player and he wouldn't be a massive loss to our team, I completely disagree with. He's one of the best players we've had at our club. The price we got for him, in my opinion, wasn't reflective of his true value. I think he's worth more than that. And I think he provides a lot, which we are going to lose next season. Are these lads coming in, the Greek lads, going to be able to support? Maybe not. Probably not as well, if we're being completely honest. They're obviously fantastic signs, but probably not. Now, the reason I don't think we're a weaker front line is because of what I've said before about the depth that we've got. You're telling me Mitoma supported by a Tommy Watson, with Minteh in his second season, with Rutter in his second season, with Matt O'Reilly in his second season, with Gruder in his second season, with Solly March coming back, with Danny Welbeck. I think we've got, and there are people there I've forgotten about. I'm sure there'll be people I've forgotten about. There are a lot of options there, and I think our front line is stacked. I think your point about a season of transition being ahead of us is absolutely true. I think we're going to see another year where we've brought in, 5-6 signings. Can De Cuyper cut it? Can Tommy Watson cut it? Can Buscagli and Coppola cut it? Can the Greek lads cut it? We don't know. I think it's certainly the case that there will be another season of transition, but it's certainly a season of opportunity for Brighton. So I think you're right. I think you're right and I think you're wrong. Not wrong. My view is that I agree with you and I disagree with you. I think we have a fantastic front line. I don't think we're weakened. I do think, however, it is going to still be a season of transition. It's crazy. There's lots of opinions, but thank you for your comment. And I don't think you're wrong necessarily. Right, let's go. Let's move on to the last few. Fall in 09. To be honest, I don't love what Hürzeler's doing with Wieffer. No, by no means should he be converted to a right back. He was one of the best midfielders 2 seasons ago. Now he's been shifted out of position where he and Baleba will be the most solid setup to help our backline. Now, I said it before, I think in an ideal world and the way I like football to be played, and I think if I was a manager, I like the idea of having a Baleba Wieffer midfield too. That's the kind of midfield partnership and style that I like and profile of players. I don't love that he's a right back. I think I'd rather maybe get a Veltman there, maybe even bring in a right back. I'm not the biggest Tariq Lamptey fan in 2025. I was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think we maybe need to boost and strengthen there, but I do ultimately think players like Kadioglu will see him play there as well. Jack Hinshelwood as well. Look, Wieffer does a job there. And the reason I like him is because he's big, he's athletic, he's strong, he wins balls in the air, he's a fantastic passer of the ball, he keeps the game ticking over, he's very solid in the way that actually Veltman is quite solid at right back. Is he a little bit positionally suspect, Wieffer, when it comes to right back? Can he track back? Can he get up and down? No, and he's not the traditional right back, and I think that's where we're seeing him come unstuck. But in an era where we don't have that kind of, Veltman would be the ideal for me. But I think it's a mix of Fabian Hürzeler maybe not seeing him as his number one right back, and also the fact that Veltman was in and out of injury a little bit last season. I think we will see Wieffer there, and it's a shame. Will Brighton this summer, strengthen a right back before the window closes? If I had to wager, I'd say maybe not. I think they probably view the kind of kadioglu role as one that can transition over. Jack Hinshaw would as well, and Wieffer can support there alongside Joel Veltman. But I agree with you, Fallen. I don't love it, but I think we will see it next season. Right, let's move on to the last one. In fact, the second last one. Eddie Stevens, thank you for your comment. Personally, I don't see us moving to a back three. Igor being set to depart leaves us with 4 centre-backs, which is ideal for a back four and not enough depth for a back three. Meanwhile, if you take one midfielder or attacker away from our squad, it would be a bit unbalanced given the attacking depth and quality. So, essentially, Eddie, I actually agree with what you're saying. I think the talk that I've been perpetuating this summer has been that the signs all seem to be there for this back three. Now, we've looked in pre-season and we're not playing a back three, and it's a little bit awkward. I think I see it. To be honest, with the players we've got, I really like the idea of back three, like a Buscagli, Coppola, Van Hecke, De Cuyper, Kadioglu, Belabor, and Henshawwood, Ayari, maybe a Matt O'Reilly and Matt O'Reilly alongside Belabor as well in some games. Mitoma, minteh, and then a striker, Welbeck up front. I like that. 5-4, a 5-2-3 or a 3-5-3 or whatever you want to call it. 3-4-3. Sorry, Jesus. I like it. I do like it. I can see it in my head, and it feels nice profile-wise. Your point here is that basically you're taking away a midfielder and attacker that we could be playing, and I think, to be honest, we're not going to start the season with a back three. We're going to start with a back four. You're right. I think in losing centre-backs, in losing players like Adam Webster, in losing players like Igor, which we're likely going to do, we do only have 4 centre-backs going into the start of this season. So are we going to play a back three? I wouldn't imagine that would be the kind of go-to option for Fabian Hürzeler. But I think what it does is this season it creates another option for Brighton. I think whereas before we didn't necessarily have as strong a profile of player to play that, I think going into the season we're much better equipped to play the back three. And I like it, and I think it will be, as I've said before, a different horses for different courses kind of job. We'll be mixing things up depending on the game, depending on the opposition, depending on the players we have available. So I think you're right. Probably don't see us starting as a back three, Eddie. I think you are right there, but I think it will be one that we will keep in our locker. And finally, the very final one, the most wild opinion and take that I've seen in the comments is from Forrest Neuville, who said, "I think you look like Maxim De Cuyper." And now this is one that so many of you I've seen in the comments ever since I made the kind of, introduction to Maxim De Cuyper video a few weeks ago. Everyone is saying, in every video, at least since then, I've been getting a couple of comments going, "You look like De Cuyper, you look like De Cuyper." You see there's 3 replies to that one, 11 likes. People are comparing. I think it's just the hair, isn't it? Obviously, I'm a much better looking version than Maxim De Cuyper. No, but obviously joking. But I think it is obviously just the mushroom hair from, the curly front and the dashing good looks, obviously. But yeah, maybe the wildest take of them all. Listen, thank you so much for watching. I hope if I read your comment out, you don't mind me getting into your opinions. Thank you so much for everyone who leaves comments regularly. Let me know your comments below. Your wildest takes of the season. Go big, go rogue for me. Let me know what you think is going to happen next season. I love the conversation. I love the community. I love the comments that we have here. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already and you've enjoyed this video and if you found yourself coming back to this channel, if you could just click that subscribe button, it really means a lot. It would help me out a lot. I know, as I've said before, it's not something I always do. I know it's a bit, it's not something I necessarily get into a huge habit of, is subscribing to people. But if you can, it would really help me. It helps me grow this channel. It helps me continue to be able to make videos regularly for you. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one in a few days' time. And as always, up the Albion.